A few weeks ago, I told you how to challenge the origin of every thought. Now that's quite a task, so this week I want to give you some practical examples. Now the most important place to challenge every thought is in your interpretation of life events. Now your interpretation will depend on which thought voice you're listening to, yourself, God, or Satan. Now there's a perfect example of this in Mark chapter 8. Peter has been observing Jesus' life and miracles. And so his natural thoughts, I would think, would be, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this before. And his interpretation came when Jesus asked him, who do people say I am and who do you say I am? And he picked God's interpretation, God's thought, and said, well, you're the Christ. Then in the next paragraph of the chapter, Jesus starts to explain his future death. And Peter's natural thoughts, I would think, would be, oh no, this is awful. And so he then listens to Satan's voice to interpret it. And he takes Jesus aside and rebukes the person he just called the Christ. Now Jesus will have none of it. And Jesus immediately interprets and recognizes which voice Peter's listening to. And he says, get behind me, Satan. He nailed it. So you see how even a strong believer can easily, occasionally, listen to the wrong voice and come to the wrong conclusion. Now let's bring it into present day. Now let's say something good happens. You get a promotion at work. So your own thoughts could be, this feels great. I'm really happy about this. And then God's interpretation, God's thought would be, I'm blessing you. I'm looking after you. And this is just the way I'm helping you in your career. This is wonderful. But Satan's voice, which you could choose to listen to, is, this is going to be really stressful. I'm not sure I'm qualified. I think I'm going to fail and embarrass myself, and it's not going to work out, and maybe I should turn the promotion down. Now let's say something actually unfortunate happens to you, and your child gets in trouble at school. Well, your own thought could be, I better get the facts to find out what happened and see how we can prevent this in the future. And if you're listening to God's interpretation, it could be something like this. I love your son. He's going to become a great man. I'm going to give you wisdom to turn this into a learning experience so it'll never happen again. But if you listen to Satan's voice, you'll take it personally. You'll say, where did I go wrong? I must be a bad parent. And then all the what ifs kick in. Satan loves to give you what if thoughts. Well, what if all the parents hate him? What if there's way more problem than I've heard? And what if he can't change? What if he spends the rest of his life in prison? So you see, choosing which thought voice to listen to has an enormous impact on your interpretation and how you feel and the results of that event. So the next time Satan shouts or whispers his interpretation into your mind to try to distract you to think negatively the way he wants, you should identify that incoming negative thought and just do what Jesus did. Get behind me, Satan. I refuse to listen to your accusations. And then you turn to God and say, how do you feel about what just happened? How do you want me to interpret it? What is your interpretation of this event? Because I want your voice. And that will change everything. So now I want to hear from you. What changes have you noticed in your life when you challenged the origin of every thought and picked God's thought? Just leave your comments and your testimony in the box below because it will encourage someone else. And if this is your first visit here, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to my weekly email newsletter by filling out the subscription form on this page. And I'll talk to you again next week, but this week, continue to challenge the origin of every thought.